guys, welcome back. Well, I assume if you clicked on this video, either you are looking to save some coin on purchasing some makeup, specifically a palette like the Huda Beauty Nude palette, or you just like your girl. So either way, welcome back, okay? Thank you for clicking, thank you for watching. So I'm gonna try and keep this video short and sweet. I have about 4 palettes, dupe options for this lovely, gorgeous Huda Beauty Nude palette that I just did a video on. You guys know I tried this out. If you haven't watched it, please check the iCard. I will go ahead and link it above, but I did go ahead and try out this new palette, and spoiler alert, I love it. It's gorgeous. But with that being said, I know that this palette is a bit on the pricier side, so someone else who also loves this palette either might not be able to afford it or just might not want to pay $65 for this palette. Even with the 20% discount at Sephora, okay? So with that being said, this video is basically me just kind of giving you some options, different options for palettes that are similar in color story, color scheme to this palette. Basically, I'm looking for palettes where you can either create the same looks or very, very similar looks that you could with this palette, but at a much more reasonable price, or less expensive price, I should say, because reasonably priced is relative. So palettes that cost a lot less than this palette, where you can basically get the same color scheme, same type of looks as with this. So let's just jump right in. The first palette I want to talk about is this Beauty Creations Tease Me palette. Okay, now when I first saw this palette, it was actually someone using it on YouTube, and they were also comparing it to the Huda Beauty Nude palette. But I found out that this palette has actually been around for about a year, I think, at least. So I don't think a dupe can be around for a year before the actual original product comes out. So, you know, that's neither here nor there. Y'all make the decision on what y'all think about that. But this is the Tease Me palette. Every time I say Tease Me, I think about that song. Who did that song? It was touch me, tease me, feel me and caress me. Y'all remember that? Old school. Anyway, this is the palette. Let me go ahead and give you a look-see. This is what this palette looks like up close. As you can see, this palette is absolutely gorgeous. Some really, really beautiful matte shades, shimmer shades, satin shades. It is absolutely gorgeous. Now, let me go ahead and hold these two palettes up next to each other just so you can see what the similarities are for these palettes. If you think they are a little bit similar or not, you can be the judge. But these are the two palettes side by side. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, as you can see, some of the shimmer shades in the Huda Beauty palette are a little bit different in color and shade to the Beauty Creations Tease Me palette. But you know what? These two palettes are very, very close, very similar. And let me just give you some specs on this Tease Me palette just so you can see what the information is on this. So this Beauty Creations Tease Me palette is 18 shadows, as you can see. Very, very pretty. I purchased mine from Amazon for only $10.29. Now, this palette is cruelty free. It has a 24-month shelf life. And as you can see, it has some really beautiful shades. I did swatch this palette. They are nice and creamy. And like I said, this palette has actually been out for about a year. Now, what I did do is I did go ahead and do kind of like a swatch comparison of the Huda Beauty palette on top and this Beauty Creations Tease Me palette on the bottom of my arm. And I did take pictures because I didn't want this video to be extremely long with me doing swatches and stuff. So I'll just go ahead and insert that picture here so you can see how it compares. Now I do have the Huda Beauty on top and I do have the Tease Me on the bottom. Okay, so now you were able to see the comparison of these two palettes. Now the swatches from this Tease Me palette, in my opinion, are a little bit more on the rosy side, but as you can see, it is a very, very close comparison to the Huda Beauty Nude palette. So let's go ahead and move on to the next palette. Now the next palette that I want to talk about is the ColourPop and Karrueche She palette. Now this was part of the Fem Rosa collection or the She collection. I don't know if it's which one it was. The Fem Rosa collection, I believe. But this is what the palette looks like. And this palette has actually been around for over a year as well. I did purchase and use this palette on my birthday last July. So I know that this palette has been around for quite a while. Now let me go ahead and just show you what this palette looks like on the inside. Now this palette is gorgeous. Just take a look at these shadows, you guys. This is beautiful. When you talk about rosy tones and mauve tones, this palette is just super duper pretty. Now let me go ahead and give you some information on this palette. For this Fem Rosa She palette from ColourPop, it has 12 shadows. This palette retails for $16, but at the time that I'm actually filming this video, hopefully I can get it up quickly because I don't know how long the sale is going to be. It's actually on sale for $12.80, you guys. So this palette is cruelty free. I'm not sure on the shelf life. I don't know, for some reason I can never find shelf life stuff for ColourPop. It must be on the website because I don't see it on the palette. Maybe it's on the box, but anyway. For this palette, it's really, really gorgeous, you guys. It has soft, romantic shades, rose and mauve themed tones. And like I said, it's been around actually for quite a while. And if you want to pick this up, you can pick this up on sale right now, okay? Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Fem Rosa She palette right next to the Huda Beauty Nude palette so we can see how they compare. Now looking at the Fem Rosa palette compared to the Huda Beauty Nude palette, of course, it is not an exact dupe, but I definitely can see where I can create similar looks with the Fem Rosa palette, if not a nicer, richer, deeper eyeshadow look with the Fem Rosa palette. These shadows in this Fem Rosa palette are gorgeous, and I still get the same type of vibe from this palette as I do the Huda Beauty Nude. Now it doesn't have the bright shimmery crystal glitter shades in here, but you can definitely create a beautiful look with the shimmer shadows that are in the Fem Rosa palette. So let me go ahead and just insert the photo of this palette compared to the Nude palette. So that's what this palette looks like compared to the Nude palette. You can judge for yourself. I believe this palette has a little bit more, these shades down here a little bit deeper, richer. You know, as far as the glitter and shimmer shades in all of these palettes, they kind of vary a little bit. You know, the lighter shades and the darker shades. Some are a little more rosy, some are a little more mauve. But for the basic overall look that you might want to create, you can get pretty close or pretty much the same look. So I really, really like this palette as a comparable option if you don't want to pick up the Nude palette. Okay, next I have these two palettes which I feel like go in conjunction for this video. And these are the NYX. This one here is the Lid Lingerie and this one here is the Cosmic Metals palettes. Now these, as you can see, are definitely mauve themed, mauve feeling palettes, and they look a bit cool tone to me. So I really get a feel for these palettes being similar to that palette. Now, let me go ahead and just open them up so you can take a closer look at these palettes. Now I have the metallic palette on top and I have the matte shades on the bottom. So these are the two NYX palettes that I have. And these shadows, you guys, are really, really nice. I'm not a huge fan of all of NYX shadow formulas, but these formulas here are really, really nice. The matte shades are super duper buttery. They blend beautifully, and these metallic shades are really gorgeous on the lid. So for these two NYX eyeshadow palettes, you can purchase these from NYX, and some Target locations actually have the NYX palettes as well. These palettes run for $10 a piece. So these are a little bit more pricey. If you wanted to get both of these palettes to use in conjunction, it would be $20 for both palettes. But like I said, they're NYX and they're actually quite nice. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at the NYX eyeshadow palettes compared to the Huda Beauty Nude palette. Now, as you can see with these eyeshadow palettes next to each other, they are very, very similar in theme and color story. I believe that you can definitely create some similar looks with these eyeshadow palettes. You might not have the super duper sparkly glittery shades that you have in the Huda palette, but you definitely have some gorgeous shadows that you can use to create a beautiful mauve and rosy type look. Now, like I said, these palettes have very creamy matte shades. They have gorgeous rich metallic colors. They are cruelty free, and they do have a 24-month shelf life. So let me just go ahead and show you these swatches compared to the Huda Beauty Nude. Now, as you can see, these shimmer shadows that are in the NYX palette are not as vibrant and bright as all of the glitter shadows that are in the Huda Beauty palette, but they are still gorgeous nonetheless, and you can still get the same color story, the same color theme with your eye look using these mauve toned palettes. Now, we're going to talk about different glitters that you can use to try to dupe some of the ones that are in the Nude in the Nude Beauty palette. The Nude Beauty palette. Get it together, girl. Okay. Now, as you can see, these shimmer shadows are not as bright and vibrant as the glitter shades that are in the Huda Beauty Nude palette, of course. But I do have some options as far as glitter if you just want to use glitter on your lid instead of these gorgeous shimmer shades. But you can still create the same type of mauve toned, romantic, sexy looks with these palettes as you can with the Huda Beauty Nude. Okay, so next let's go ahead and jump into this last eyeshadow palette that I want to share with you guys as a comparable option for the Huda Beauty Nudes. This is another Beauty Creations palette, and this one is called Cie Set. As you can see, the packaging on this is really, really pretty. It's absolutely gorgeous. And let me go ahead and show you what this palette looks like on the inside. Very, very pretty. There is a mirror in this palette. I really, really like this palette. So let me just give you some quick specs on this palette. This palette has 9 shadows, as you can see, 5 mattes and 4 shimmers. It is available on Amazon for $10.44, which is actually a really great price for this. It's cruelty free, has a 24-month shelf life, and it has some really beautiful rose themed shadows, some super soft mattes, and some extra pigmented shimmers. Okay, let me go ahead and show you what this palette looks like right next to the Huda Beauty Nude. Now, with the Cie Set palette, I see this as being a palette for someone who doesn't necessarily want to have to choose from 18 shadows. You might want to just keep it simple but still get the same type of feel and theme with your eye look. Also, the Cie Set does have a deeper shadow in there, and I know for a lot of us, we're always looking for that deeper shade to kind of pull an eye look together, especially if you're looking for something to smoke out your look. The Cie Set palette definitely has a deeper shade in here, but it still has the same theme and tone to the palette as the Huda Beauty Nude. Now let's go ahead and just take a quick look at some swatches of these two palettes together. Okay, you guys, now that we've taken a look at some of the eyeshadow palettes that I feel are similar to the Huda Beauty Nude palette, like I said, I'm not showing you guys exact dupes, but I am getting you some palettes that can give you the same looks, if not very similar looks. Now, let's go ahead and address these super duper crystal-like shimmers and glitters in this Huda palette. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and just swatch those glitter shades alone, and then I want to share with you also some swatches of glitter shades and metallic eyeshadows that I already have in my collection, just for you to take a look and kind of compare. Maybe you'd like to grab some of those as well. Now, these are all of the shimmer and metallic shadows that are in the Huda Beauty palette. Let's see how close we can get with some of the glitter and metallic shadows that I already own in my collection. Okay, now the first thing I want to talk about is actually a glitter palette. Now, this is a glitter palette from Beauty Glazed. This is what the palette looks like, and these are all of the glitters that are inside of this palette. Now, this Beauty Glazed pressed glitter palette comes with 15 colors. It can be purchased on Amazon for $9.88, and they're highly pigmented, long-lasting glitters, and I would suggest that you use a glitter glue with these, even though they're in a palette. So let me just go ahead and swatch a few of the glitters in here that I think might come close to some of these glitters from the Huda Beauty. Okay, so I've chosen 3 glitters from my palette to swatch and just see how they look. Now, those last 3 are glitters that came out of this Beauty Glazed glitter palette. And as you can see, I didn't use any glitter glue, so that's just me swatching it from the palette and swatching it on my arm. And I'd say they are pretty darn close to some of the glitters from the Huda palette. Okay, so now I want to take a look at a couple of loose glitters that I have as well, just in case you have a lot of loose glitters in your collection like I do. I just picked these 2 loose glitters at random because they look to be a little bit similar to the shades that I'm trying to match. Now, this first one here, both of these are from Super Glitters. You can purchase these online for about $1 to $2 for this glitter, okay? And this first one here is called Fireheart Rise. So let me just do a quick little swatch of this. Yeah, so it's not sticking very well, but you can still get an idea. And you can see it's actually very, very close to this one here out of the Huda palette. Very, very close. Now, the last loose glitter is called Blushes Pink. And I'm just trying to put enough of that on so you can see what the color looks like. Now, even with me just placing that glitter on my arm, you can still get an idea of the color. And you can see that these glitters are very, very close in color to the ones from the actual Huda palette. Very, very close. Now, y'all, if y'all see glitter all over my face, you know why. Okay, so what I want to do now, lastly, is I just want to show you some swatches of some of my metallic liquid eyeshadows, just in case you're not really into glitter, but you still want the same kind of look as you can get with the Huda palette. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the 5 glitter shades that I swatched. Okay, so let's just quickly go through some of these liquid metallic type eyeshadows that I have. Now, I have 2 from Colourpop. These are the 2 shades that I have, and these, as you can see, are a little bit on the deeper side as far as these shadows go. Now, these Colourpop Supernova shadows run for about $7. Right now, Colourpop is having a sale, so they're only $5.60. And I have Firecracker and I have Dragon. So let me just swatch these 2 for you, just so you can see how they look in comparison to some of these shimmer shadows. So this one is Firecracker. Gorgeous. And this one is Dragon. So you guys see how gorgeous those shadows are Oh my gosh, they are so pretty. And you can see how similar they are to some of the shades out of the Huda palette. It kind of gives you that same feel. So that's all I have, you guys, for these similar palettes and glitter and metallic shadow options that you could use, purchase, or you might already have them in your collection right now and just don't know it, instead of spending the $65 on the Huda Beauty New Nudes palette, just in case it's not something that's in your budget. So I just want to share that with you guys. Hopefully you found it helpful. Maybe you saw something that you'd like to get, like to buy, whatever the case may be. I will leave links down in my description box for items that I can. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Toodles!